specific questions you have in mind to do with either Quran or any prophets?
In our country, we do maybe have the basic knowledge, but not so much. For example, learning like Arabic for us.
Yeah.
You know,
I understand that, yeah.
We tried to look everywhere for like a Quran in our language.
To learn it? Okay, for learning the Quran, I think the best thing to do is, first, I recommend, if you do have anyone in your family that knows how to read it, grab something, it's called Qaida. It's like a little book. It has the Arabic alphabet. It only teaches how to read it, but reading it's better than not knowing at all. So it teaches the basic rules of how, like grammar, we call it tajweed in Arabic, and it teaches you how to read it step by step from the alphabet. But if you're looking into learning about Islam, the first thing I recommend is learning Salah and the importance of it, the Salah. So you can learn how to pray without having to know Arabic. And the importance of prayer is because the one difference between us and the mushrikeen and the idol worshippers, anyone who worships multiple gods, is Salah. The Prophet stated that in a hadith, right? So learning how to pray and learning basically how to speak to God through dua is the best way to start. And always build on faith, iman, like your faith in religion, before moving on to massive things like learning Arabic, learning to memorize the Quran. Because I recommend, if you go online, you can search up any like speakers. They'll give you basic run-throughs on 5 pillars of Islam, the 6 pillars of iman. They'll run through what we believe God is. I can run through it with you now. There's something called Tawheed, I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's belief in one God. It has 3 parts to it. So the understanding of the Salaf, we have Tawheed Rububiyyah, Tawheed Uluhiyyah, and Tawheed Asma wa Sifat. If we start with Asma wa Sifat, it's understanding God's attributes, God's names. I'm sure you've heard 99 names of Allah. So we cannot reject an attribute of God, right? So if we say God is the most merciful, we accept that as a unanimous thing. Whenever we mention God, we mention him as the most merciful. When God says he's Ar-Razak, he's a provider, right? Or when he mentions in another verse, he's a sustainer. We have to accept that to believe in Tawheed, right? One God. There's Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, which is basically when you act and you do worships and you praise God. All that praise and all that act of worship should only be for God, right? So when you completely, solely divide your life for the sake of God, then that is what acts of worships are, rububiyyah. And then the last part is uluhiyyah. Any act you do, if I give you charity, you give me charity. If I feed the poor, I clothe the poor, that should be for the sake of God, right? So when we talk about for the sake of God, many people just think, oh, you do something because God tells you. No, you need to do it from your heart. I believe by doing this, God will be pleased with me. It has to be an inner feeling, right? So that's the basics of Tawheed, the pillars, right, per se. And then to be a Muslim, you need to follow the 5 pillars of Islam and to believe in the 6 pillars of Iman. So for example, the 5 pillars of Islam, I'm sure you've heard. So Shahada. Without a Shahada, you cannot do the 2nd pillar, which is Salah, because you're not Muslim, right, without the Shahada. So each pillar is said in an order of understanding. You take your Shahada, you move on to Salat, you give Zakat, you fast, and if you can, do Hajj, if you are able to. And then you have 6 pillars of belief in Islam. Belief in Allah, belief in his angels, right? Belief in his prophets, belief in his books, belief in Qadr, so his will, and what was the last one if I'm not wrong? Angels, Allah, prophets, our books, and there's a last one.
The Day of Judgment.
The Day of Judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah, yeah. Sorry for that. So those 6 beliefs, or 5 beliefs, they make a Muslim, right? When we talk about a Muslim, if without those beliefs, it nullifies you as a Muslim. Because let's say I don't believe in the Day of Judgment, I've rejected something from the first surah of the Quran, right? So those core beliefs, rejecting even one, can make you out of the fold of Islam. But understanding all those beliefs can strengthen your Islam. because I understand what you mean. Yes, back home, because I'm from Pakistan, right? I have obviously a different lineage. I'm not the average Pakistani, but in our family, we have Islam. We have that. There's salah, there's zakah, there's fasting, everything. But the depth in our knowledge, for example, if I asked my mum what's the 6 pillars of Iman, she wouldn't know, right? So it's an understanding that building on knowledge, a Muslim should always strive to learn. And when you learn, you set an example for your mum, your children, your siblings. So those understandings will broaden an understanding on your family and anyone who comes after you. If you have a wife, if you get children, by you being good, you help your children be good. But by if I was bad, my children have a chance to be bad. So Islam is here to help a family unit through oneness of God. God can grant anything, aka His qadr, His will.
Sorry to interrupt you guys for one moment. There's a mosque 5-minute walk from here. It's Asr time. Why don't we're all gonna go? Do you want to join us?
We always used to go during Tarawih.
Pardon?
We always used to go during Tarawih to the mosque.
You know the one I'm talking about, the one opposite McDonald's.
We were gonna actually head because we're not usually in this location.
But what I would request you to consider, that's fine. Just come and pray because we can all go together. We can pray. You can go from there. You can go. It's through the shopping centre. I don't want to force you if you don't. It's okay.
We're planning to go with a few friends and cousins in Leighton.
Oh, in Leighton. Okay, that's not this round. That's fine. So we need to make the time and go.
Yeah.
Okay,
What time is
6 o'clock Jamaat.
Okay.
Sir. So if you want to carry on speaking, I'll just thought you can come with us, but you can carry on speaking if you prefer.
I don't mind. I can pray here.
You can pray here.
Yeah.
Okay, you carry on.
Okay. Are there any other questions you had regarding it?
That's it,
Have
really.
you got Quran in English?
No.
Yeah, you have now. Okay. That's a selection of all the literature on the table on the Quran. Do read it. Come by again if you ever do. 2 to 8 o'clock every Saturday we're here.
If you have any questions, I will recommend one thing to understand for the Quran. Any questions you have, any verses are unclear, there's something called tafsir, which you can go back to a commentary on the verses. One everyone recommends is by a guy called Ibn Kathir. So if you don't understand anything, just search up the Quran tafsir and just pull up the ayah or verse or whatever you're reading, and it will come out and you'll understand. That's an understanding of scholars and what that verse means. But that's basically the Quran. But yeah, it was nice to speak to you.
Basically, it's what brother is saying. So this is one interpretation, right? So Quran, interpret from the Quran, number one. So when the Quran address a question, it explains in the following part. Like for example, Allah said, "Yes, alunaka ani ruh." People are asking question about ruh to Prophet. So the answer, Allah saying in the Quran, Allah saying, then Allah revealed the verse. Allah said, "Qul ruh min amri ruh," means ruh is the command of God. So the first understanding of the Quran is from the Quran itself. Then the second understanding is through the tafsir, which is backed up by the hadith. Hadith is the literature, but Allah revealed to Prophet Muhammad in his own wording, right? And then we have another understanding, which is the lugha, meaning what does that mean by this word? So we have Arabic dictionary, and it gives you the multiple meaning. But we look at the meaning within that context. So when we look at all these avenues, we can understand what is the first approach is from the Quran. Quran interpreter. So whenever any question comes, go read throughout the Quran. You will find on the chapter. If you do not find it, you can go to the tafsir.
For example, a big question that many people have, for example, I'll give you in the Quran. Christians come and they say, your Quran confirms the Bible, to follow the Bible. But one thing I say clearly is an understanding of the Quran is, for example, the word used in the Quran is Injil, not Injilat, multiple gospels, right? It's not plural. So when you look at the word, it's a singular gospel, right? But when you look at the Bible, it's multiple gospels and multiple people. So that's an understanding through using Arabic, right? Because regarding your language as well, I'm sure if you translated anything into English, it would not be perfect. There are some things like you would say, or some sayings or jokes in another language that doesn't make sense in English. Yeah. So it's like understanding that words in Arabic, the best thing to do is go back to the scholars or go back to someone who has an understanding, because Arabic is a very vast language and it has many understandings. So the best thing to do, any questions, either go to the local mosque or go online and search up the tafsir. And as he said, many hadith can come into interpreting the Quran as well. And then there are some verses that when it says do not kill, you don't need to understand or get a scholar to understand that. So the Quran has two different verses, the unclear ones and then the clear ones, like clear commandments, and then there are unclear verses which need interpretation. But that's regarding the Quran. Hadith, I recommend, if you do want to look into hadith, to get someone knowledgeable to look with you, because when people go into vast amounts of hadith, they see da'i, weak hadith, and then they see sahih hadith. They don't know where to start, and they don't know what these hadith, under what context, and what interpretation they need to do, right? You're both Muslims. That's good then, alhamdulillah. But yeah, it's very simple. Just start with the Quran and reading into the translations and going back to scholars. And then after,
let's go for salah then,
yeah.
Inshallah. I'll let you brothers go, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Because this is important. Allah mentioned that the condition of the believer, right? In Surah Al-Mu'minun, الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. The one who prays, not only prays, he protects the salah. So the reminder we inshallah, believers come says, objective is to, bow down and worship Allah. Otherwise, we will be just a people of lip service.
Of course.
We should not be like that, inshallah. Make dua. Assalamu alaikum. Let's go, brother.
Come back if you have any questions every Saturday.
Yeah, these are Muslims. I don't know whether.
No. I've seen this one. Check your pocket. We lost 2 mice. Just
No,
check your pocket.
I'm giving to.
Just take. I'm not telling you have it.
No.
I'm telling you check.